It is the courage to be disliked.
No more holding back. You're going to take up space. You're going to show up and be big. You don't believe in your own power.
When I walked in, when I found out, I was like, I'm not trash. I refuse to believe that I also fit into this mold.
Today, I'm honored to introduce someone who is not only one of my favorite people, but also a true warrior of life. Born in Denver, Colorado, and shaped by her experiences both in the U.S. and in Mexico, Espi has dedicated her life to serving her community with passion and resilience. From founding Project Literacy in 1999 to save her middle school from closing, to co-creating Jóvenes Unidos as part of the Padres Unidos in the early 2000s, her work has always centered on building community, connecting people to resources, and standing up for those who are too vulnerable or marginalized to advocate for themselves. Through her journey of navigating personal hardships, finding her own power, and redefining her purpose, she embodies courage, strength, and fierce determination to make a difference. As an administrator in the Denver public school system, a mother and mentor, Espi strives to ensure that her children and her students feel proud of who they are and embrace the beauty of their world. Please join me today in welcoming this incredible force for good to my podcast, She Is Mother. Yeah. Welcome, Espi. Did that sound like you?
Whoa. I think I should have read that to be ready for it.
Well, as you know, I have always said that I see you differently than you see yourself. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So what was it like to hear that?
I mean, it was uncomfortable. And also, it's true. What you said is true. I have always been an advocate, and I've always had this fire for, fighting for my community and people, and making sure that my kids feel good in their skin.
I've known you almost 6 years.
Yeah.
It'll be 6 years in February. Time flies.
Yes.
And I consider myself fortunate, and I consider this a gift. I feel very fortunate, having relationships like I have with you, and watching you grow, and watching you heal, and watching you evolve. And one of the things that I'm really struck by is how I've said to you that I see you differently than you see yourself. And these words are genuine. I see you as a force. I see you as passionate. I see you as strong and resilient. And, I admire the work that you've done in the world. And I know that you've talked with me about, you want the people that you support, the students that you mentor, you advocate for them. You want them to feel good and to feel proud about who they are. And a lot of, you yourself, as well as a lot of your students, are people of color. They're brown people. And, you've talked to me about, the school to prison pipeline and all of these things that you feel very strongly about. And yet you don't believe in your own power. You don't believe, you struggle. There's self-doubt. Mm-hmm. You struggle with that. And I'm struck by that. I'm curious. I'm just curious what you're going to have to say about that. Your own personal challenges around this.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is hard because I've always kind of had to play small, and I thought I was an annoying child and too wild, and so I kind of took that as oh, this is who I am, mm-hmm. And so I always have been careful more careful than not on like how I act and what I do. And I think it's gotten worse over the years. I think when I was a kid, I was like this wild thing. And then as I started like really growing up and coming out into the world, it was like, oh no, you got to know your lane. And so it's been, I feel like that's probably why I've always felt like there was a lane created for me where I just need to like look pretty and be quiet and, just kind of go with the flow of things. And and that was hard because I am not, it's hard for me to stay quiet.
Well, I would imagine it's hard for you to be small. I mean, when I think, look at what you've done. I mean, like even for example, the Project Literacy in 1999. Okay, 1999. You were how old?
13 or 14, yeah.
So 13 years old, 13 or 14, to save your middle school. You were 13.
Yeah.
Okay, tell the listeners what that was.
I walked into a meeting. I was working for this organization called Youth Biz. And we would go to all these community meetings to see what was going on in the community. I walked into a community meeting that was talking about coal. And they had a huge graph on the projector. And the numbers on the graph seemed like they made some sort of sense. I didn't know what it meant. And then it was like first, second, and third grade. That's it. I'm like, interesting. And then I found my lunch number and I'm like, oh, wait. This is my lunch number. And my lunch number goes up to the 3, and that's it. And I'm in 8th grade. And it was hard to realize, like, the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh my God, I'm dumb. I can't read. Then I kind of put 2 and 2 together. It was the lunch numbers of all the kids that were at Cole and their reading levels, our reading levels. And I was reading at a 3rd grade level in 8th grade. And I was just, it made sense because we were reading Harry Potter and I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe this wizard stuff is just not for me.
For you.
Maybe I just don't get this. I don't know. It's a hard reading. And I took it personal.
How so?
I took it personal because the narrative in the meeting became all of these like community leaders talking about closing the school and talking about the kids, like us kids, like we're not even gonna make it to high school. Like a very low percentage of the kids are actually gonna make it to high school and graduate. Like there was no hope, and I was like, what is going on? And then I was like so sad that the only narrative was closing. And I looked at everybody in the room and I'm like, damn, this room is full of adults who literally are just thinking we're not worth it. And the only solution is to close. In that same meeting, which I'm like, now I'm like, God, what is happening here? They were talking about the Annie Casey Foundation and the Denver Foundation giving grants to like spruce up Cole, the neighborhood. And I'm like, you know what would spruce up Cole? Saving the middle school, doing something for the kids. Like, what are we doing? And so I left that meeting and decided to get an application for this grant. And I applied for a $5,000 grant to start tutoring. In the process of like writing the grant, I've always been very metiche. Like I've always wanted to know everything. So I asked a bunch of, I went to the school and started thinking and questioning my principal about our reading levels. I'm like, hey, I I'm a straight A student, and I'm reading at a third grade level. So can you explain to me where the disconnect is? How am I a straight A student and then reading at a third grade level? Like, your expectations are really low. And she was basically telling me that Mitchell was the elementary school that was feeding into the middle school. And the kids from Mitchell were coming into middle school reading at like first and second grade levels. And it was really hard for the teachers to get the kids to read at an eighth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade level in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I write this grant. I put my crush's name on there because, I needed 3 people, 3 references. I couldn't think of anyone. But I knew my crush's name, and I added him. Mm-hmm. Middle school, I tell you. Mm-hmm. And then I was told I got the grant. And so then what I decided was, hey, we are going to get the kids who are reading at a third grade level in eighth grade to start tutoring the fifth grade students that are reading at a first grade level. And hopefully that, brings up our reading scores. And if the kids are coming into middle school reading at a higher, even at a third grade level, then we can grow, right? Like right now, there isn't much growth happening. And so that's what we did. We started just tutoring kids. So motivating middle schoolers, getting them paid to tutor, elementary school students. And we were kind of trying to do the double whammy of like, get the fifth graders to read and get the eighth graders to read. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of went and did that. We did that for like 2 years. And then the program was funded an additional year, but then the middle school was closed.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Espi, I just sit here and I just take this in. And mm-hmm. and there are so many things about what you share with me that are just, they just strike me. They're very inspiring. First of all, context. You're 13. Okay, what 13-year-old walks into a room and looks at this data, and that motivates them to do something about it? There's something in you. I'm curious about this. There's whether it's the fierce determination. What is it in you? Something in you was stronger to fight this fight. Mm-hmm. And you had, even the intelligence to go, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. Not only is there something wrong with this, the other thing is you read between the lines and you got the message, and the message is, you guys are just going to be thrown away. This is how we're going to deal with this. Yeah. You guys are hopeless. We don't believe you're going to get anywhere. So we'll just close the school and get rid of you, which I think is a horrible reality mm-hmm. to be slapped with. Yeah. And then you didn't accept it. You went to the principal. You said, hey, help me understand this. What's going on? There's something in you that I believe is exceptional. I think that all of us, we have something. We're ordinary and extraordinary in some kind of way, right? And there's something about you that's exceptional because, we can get into your background. We can get into the adversity. Do we need to do that? It's not like you came from privilege. It's not like, you came with everything handed to you. No, you had a rough life. Mm-hmm. And yet there was something exceptional in you that did this thing at 13. Yeah. And it didn't stop there. You did other things. Yeah. You know what I mean? And yet, for some reason, you're sharing with me, today's your birthday, 38. 38 is going to be your year, and 38 is going to be your year of no more holding back. You're going to take up space. You're going to speak. You're going to show up and be big. Yeah. And you're 38 and you're finding the courage to do that now. So I know I'm going on. This idea of these feel like they don't go together. Like you have this fierce power to do things for other people, yet internally you battle with your own narrative about who you are.
Yeah. I think when I walked in, when I found out, I just and heard people talking about closing the school, I was like, I'm not trash. Like, I am not trash. And like, I refuse to believe that I also fit into this mold. And it made me sad for me. And my well, I didn't really have friends, but like my friends, my the people that were there with me, you know, that were smiling every day, that were getting up and doing what they needed to do to get to school, you know, to find a purpose, to keep going. And I think also, like, I think it also came from my dad. Like, my dad was always like, you need to translate this and you need to fill this out. And so I got really good at filling out applications for everything. I got really good at not being afraid of navigating systems and just, you know, using that superpower of playing small, you know, because the power of being small, that fire is in you. And that fire is in me, but I was very careful. I had seen it before. Like when my fire lit, it burned other people. And it burned bridges that I needed, you know, like systems that I needed to navigate, people I needed for support. And so I was also like very polite about the things that I was doing. And so I was still playing small, and I was still trying to find that space of like, hey, change needs to happen. Like, we need to make this thing. And it was really small, you know, it wasn't like a huge change. Ultimately, the school ended up closing. But I think I let people know, and like the community know, like, hey, the kids matter. And when those 8th graders were supporting those 5th graders, it gave them a purpose. And it was like fighting a common enemy, you know?
What was the common enemy?
I think the system of poverty and fighting poverty, you know?
Was it just the system of poverty, or was it the system of being brown and in poverty?
I mean, brown, black, in poverty.
Okay.
And trying to do things in a way that you're not causing so much trouble. Because when you cause trouble, like, you know, you end up either beat up, or you're incarcerated, or you're out of school, or so you couldn't cause, you know, I couldn't cause too much trouble. I could do a little bit of trouble was getting
you could go to the line
somewhere. Yeah, you know, it was making some small movement, which brings me to like the breakthrough. I feel like, you know, I'm 38 today, and I've felt like I have kept myself in this mold of like letting my fire burn and like and making change, but also being very cautious of that change.
You're so brilliant. You're brilliant in the way that you're a kid, and you learned to use the thing of playing small in a very skilled kind of way, that it got you through the systems. Like, I'm guessing that your father was having you do all of this because English was not his first language.
Yeah.
So he did not have the command of the language. And this was really common. This is common for first generation immigrants, is that oftentimes children are doing adult things at a very young age because their parents don't have the language or the command of the language. And so it sounds like that's what happened for you. And you got really good at navigating systems because you were introduced to them very early as a matter of necessity. You got good at playing the system and using this thing that actually was that playing small was oppressing you. It was making you small. You used it to your advantage. Okay, so that's cool. And what's interesting is let's fast forward today. It's like you're still stuck there. Like you recognized, oh my goodness, this thing that really worked for me is now imprisoning me. It's keeping me from being all of who I am. And it sounds like this is a new realization, that this is something that you've just recently come to.
Yeah, I think it's been like maybe in the last like year where it's bothering me. Like it's starting to bother me, and I find myself like writing about it or having these like fake conversations in my head of like, oh, why didn't you say this? And asking myself really tough questions like, who is this for? What is this for? Like, what do you think you're losing by saying this? And I think it is the courage to be disliked. I think also part of like playing small, people like you. A lot of people like you. You're not a pest. You're not calling people out. You're just doing what you're supposed to, and then it's empowering, and you're moving forward, and you're not causing too many issues.
You're coloring in the lines.
Yeah, you're picking your colors. You're doing what you're doing, but you're right in there, which I think is hard.
What do you feel like you've lost because of that? Staying in the lines, being small. Like, what are you recognizing now?
When I was telling you, like, I got really good at reading energy and really good at navigating, it also shut me down. Like, it also, like, I had to say goodbye to the place where, like, my intuition would tell me to do things, and I wouldn't do them. I mean, and I have really strong intuition. And now I've started to like listen and also like be a little bit more vocal. Because I think also what happens is like you miss the recognition of like that intuition trying to talk to you. And you're just like, hey, listen, we're doing the thing. And it's working for us. And you know what? I do look really pretty when I'm quiet. It happens. This is my good angle, And so you get really good at, people pleasing. And who doesn't love that? You're not making people feel bad. You're not.
What I'm struck by this about this is when you have, like, what you do now, like, I think about what, you being at AUL, Academy of Urban Living, and how you did make people uncomfortable. Like, you did confront people, you confronted your staff about white saviorism, you didn't hold back. And what I think is interesting is, again, there's this dichotomy in your life when it comes to the people that you love and care for.
When I look at the kids, like, I see myself in them, and I see them making adjustments, and I already did that. I don't want them to have to do that too. I want them to have their opinions and know what an opinion is and stand up for themselves and learn how to advocate. And also, like, I have had difficult conversations, and they've cost me some relationships, and that's okay. I think at the very least, people think about the things I said. And progressively, as time goes by, I think things make more sense, and that's another thing about breaking free, it's like in the last 2 years, I have had like difficult conversations with people like, hey, at the end of the day, we have the same goal in like educating and trying to push the kids forward and trying to give them access to opportunities and trying to show them and take them and allow them to take up space. And other times it just, slapped me in the face. It was like, hey, no, this is not it. And that's okay, you know? You can't make everybody happy.
You know, there's a couple things that have come up for me, you know, as you've said that. One thing that I kind of went back to something that you said, I mean, it was very touching, is when you were in that meeting and you were like, they were throwing us away and you said, I'm not trash. I'm not trash. And like, I think about AUL, these are the throwaways. And I say that and it sounds so harsh, but it's the truth. Is society has given up on them. Yeah. School systems have given up on them. And you're wanting something for them. What is it that you're wanting for them that everybody else is giving up on?
I want them to have the ability to see that they're as smart as kids who go to Ivy League schools, you know, to find their strength. And I want them to know, I mean, it took me years, you know. I think another part in playing small is also believing like what society tells you, like that you need to have, and determining success, you know, and determining like what does success look like, you know, the degrees, the houses, the cars, the looking nice, the 2.5 children, all these targets of all these measurements of success that we have. That society gives us. It took me a long time to realize, like, I actually don't give a fuck about any of that. I don't. I need to create my own measures of success. And I want to have my own measures of success, because what I call success might be very irrelevant to people. You know, I feel very successful if I see the sunrise with my kids. Like, it just means the world to me. Like, I love it. I love that, you know, my kids and I are in the car and we get to see the sunrise together. Like, it fills me, you know, like I woke up another day and I get to be your mom, and here we go, and we're going to see the sunshine, and, you know, we're going to see different colors, and it's going to be beautiful. And on our drive, there's like this really part of the Platte River, and it is one of my favorite parts to see, you know, and it's so different every day. We drive through the same thing. That is a measurement of success to me. You know, if I can make dinner for my kids, that's a measurement of success. If I can walk barefoot, like feel the dirt, feel the grass, like feel connected to the earth, like that is a measurement of success, you know? Seeing my students like smile and get to school despite everything they have going on, like that is a measurement of success. And so I want my kids to know, like, hey, you can have your own measurements of success and figure out what that is like, and then look at what society has to offer. Look at how can you use school as a tool for your own success, for your own measurements, you know?
I'm wondering for you, like you say, 38, what do I want for my year? And you're coming in, you're coming into your own, and you know, you're wanting these things for your kids. You say, I want my kids to feel comfortable in their own skin. First, I'm curious about what that means. Secondly, I want to know what the version of that is for you for 38.
You know, the picture that comes to my mind is like the fucking pencil skirts. Oh my God. They are so uncomfortable. Like, and I'm sorry for anyone who's listening who loves pencil skirts. They're really uncomfortable. You can't wear them without Spanx. Like, it's just, or, you know, like, they're just so tight. And when I was considered like successful, I was wearing pencil skirts and walking in high heels, which I still love and don't do as much because I also love comfort. But it took me a long time to like really love myself and my body, and without making adjustments. Like, I practiced for a long time, like standing in the mirror and looking at myself and not make the like, oh, I'm gonna like suck it in and like, oh, this is my good angle, and oh, and I was always adjusting myself, and even wearing the pencil skirts. Yes, I looked good. I felt awful. I felt uncomfortable. I didn't like the girdles. I was just like in like, it was just like, oh man, I just gotta, and it took me a long time to realize, like, I can be powerful and also be comfortable, and be okay, and like not have to have this whole pressure of like, you need to look a certain way, you need to dress a certain way. I felt foreign to myself. It felt like it wasn't me. It almost felt like I was trying to be somebody else who I was never going to be, and then realizing, like, no, you gotta be. I mean, honestly, I owe that to COVID. I do. I stopped wearing girdles during COVID because I didn't have to go anywhere. Just needed a nice top. And it worked. But I do owe that to COVID.
Thank you, COVID.
Thank you, COVID. Thank you, COVID. No more girdles on the daily.
That's funny.
But yeah, like, and it took me a long time to like love myself and look at myself in the mirror and just be like, I love you. Like, I genuinely love you. And I still, like, this morning I woke up and I'm like, I need to be the first person to say happy birthday to me. And like, I need to remind myself, like, I love you. And it was so uncomfortable. I like could not make eye contact with myself. And I was like, well, it's your birthday. Good luck.
Good luck with that.
Do something nice for yourself. But even that, it's the adjustments, the like, am I chewing properly? Am I saying the right thing? Am I pronouncing things right? Am I like smiling too much? I mean, it was everything. I was questioning everything, and I still find myself doing that from time to time of like, oh my God, I just did it right now where I was like, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? Is this a good angle? And I don't want that for my kids anymore. I don't. I want them to feel good. I want them to eat a meal and actually enjoy it. I want them to be authentic. I want them to be proud of who they are, It took me a long time to like really genuinely like love who I was without trying to be somebody else,
Right. Right. And there's an image that kind of came to my mind as you were talking about it. It's like the road that we lead, we pave for ourselves as well. It's almost like you paved that road for them and you recognized, oh, that's for me too, in terms of really, really getting to a place where you're comfortable in your own skin, and that recognizing all the things that you did to be seen as acceptable, successful. You contorted and did all these things that weren't you, and you lose yourself and you do all of this because you want to be seen as valuable, as valued, and recognizing, oh my goodness, it's taken me so far away from who I am. And here you're paving this for your students, you're paving this road and leading for your kids, and it's like, oh, this is for me too. I think about myself in that same situation, that my big thing is, it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what hell you've been through, it doesn't, for me it's like, that's just where you start. And it doesn't take away anything from you. You still have that power inside of you to do whatever it is you want to do. And I realized, doing this for 30 years, it's like, oh, this was just as much for me as it was for the people that I was serving. I got something out of it too. And it sounds like that's been a similar experience.
It's so true. I recently was talking to one of my students about, she was in the bathroom crying because we had gone to a play where several schools went, and I took a group of girls to the bathroom and was waiting, and she wasn't coming out, and I'm like, what is happening? Are you okay? And she was crying in the bathroom, and she was crying because there were some girls from other schools that were giving her the side eye, and it made her feel little. And she didn't say that. She didn't tell me like, oh, they made me feel little. She was crying, and she said, oh man, it just like, they said, like, they looked at me and they described what I was wearing, and they just were talking about how bad I looked and like laughing at me, and not directly having that conversation, or telling her directly. And like, I remember being that, and I remember being that in my little pencil skirt where I thought like, I should blend in with these people because I look and I'm wearing the same things, and I didn't, and I was telling her like, hey, look, it's more about them and less about you. Like, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. And you need to love yourself so fucking much, so radically, that it doesn't matter when somebody gives you the side eye. That you recognize it and that you tell yourself, you know what, it doesn't matter because I love you, and we're good. You and I, we're good. We're good in this body. We're good with what we're wearing. We made these choices. We got this. And that was also for me, I'm 38, but I still get the side eye. And sometimes I catch myself like being like, oh, uncomfortable, and like having like thinking of making adjustments instead of like taking up space. I recently had a colleague of mine. I normally dress up for work, and I was wearing jeans and like a t-shirt, and she made a comment about like, I thought you were a kid. And I almost like, it took me a while to like respond, to I'm like, oh God, she's trying to like make me feel bad. So I like looked at her and I was like, oh my God, really? Thank you. Like, I am almost 38 years old and you're telling me I look like a high schooler? Like, oh God, thanks. And she rolled her eyes and walked away.
I guess she didn't mean it that way.
She didn't mean it that way. It wasn't meant to be that way.
They say that what makes a difference in a person's life is just that one person. And you could have been that one person in that moment. I mean, that could have been something that changed her life, that created a pivot, that really sunk in, and thinking about the kids that you work with, they probably don't get that often, their parents are just surviving. They don't even see their kids because they can't even see for themselves. And, you might have been just the one person that took the time to actually see her and talk with her and support her. And that could be the world of difference for her, I'm curious. It makes me think about for you, like, you are this strong force and you have done such wonderful things for young people, especially young brown people and black people, and helping them get back to who they are and love who they are, because so many people are telling them who they think they are, and they believe those narratives, and they go through life believing those narratives. They believe that they're thrown away, they believe that they're trash and they have no worth, and you're helping them remember who they are. And you've been phenomenal at that. And I'm curious, like, in your own path, like, have you had people? Like, have you had that one person or a person or persons at different times in your life where it was like they said the thing that you needed and it changed things for you?
You know, I think the very first person I had was my uncle Widow, who died when I was 4. But one of the things that he would always do, like, he always told me he loved me all the time. And he always, like, complimented me for the things that I was doing. Like, he wasn't like, oh my God, you're so pretty, you know, like, he loved that I was so adventurous. He laughed when I asked questions. He genuinely, like, was interested in, like, what I had to say, you know, and would ask me questions about, like, hey, do tell me more about this. And he was very caring. And I think that's kind of who I, like, took after, you know, in the sense of, like, you know, after he died, my parents were not very nurturing. You know, it took a long time for them to, like, say, I love you. I think I was, like, 19 years old. And it was like it was my uncle. Like, I think it was a lot of that was him. And then, like, working, like, you know, like, just, like, having people say things to me that made that those things made me uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're, like, you reading the introduction, I was like, oh my God. Like, you could see my face, and I'm like, oh, do I smile at this? Like, how do I take it? Like, I don't know how to take it, you know? But I think it was, like, working with you and working with the kids. Sometimes that they're so honest. You know, they're just like, oh my God, thank God you're here, miss, because let me tell you. And it just made me feel valued, you know. When my little brother died, my students, I think every single one of my students wrote a card for me. Like, I still haven't read them all.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. And they were very genuine. Like, I think one of the things that I fight for all the time is for people to see the humanity in my kids. Like, they are human, you know? And it really fucks with me to see how dehumanizing, like, life gets progressively as you go, especially when we're navigating systems like school, like college, like, you know, I'm getting my master's right now. Like, even in that program, how much we have dehumanized people, and how much we don't see the humanity versus like my kids see the humanity. They, you know, I've read some of those cards, and not only do they see my pain, but they feel my pain, you know? Like, I feel seen. And I feel like they also hold me. They also have so much strength. You know, there's a lot of strength in seeing someone's humanity.
Right.
And when you see someone's humanity, they are of value. You automatically find a value in them.
Right.
You know? And I wish, that's why I want my kids to occupy spaces. Because what we need in spaces like master's programs, like PhD programs, like, you know, we need to be able to see the humanity in each other. To be able to be there for each other and create communities, you know?
Yeah, what you know, it's interesting though. Humanity, you know, we talk about humanity, and what does that really mean? It's really about, I really see you. I get past the narrative. I get past what I believe about you, and I think about like your kids when your brother died, and that it was them. It wasn't the other teachers. It wasn't the adults you worked with. You know, it may not even been the adults in your community. They hear these kids. I mean, it's heartbreaking because I feel like what I see is society's given up on them, and they have narratives about them. They have narratives about them. You know,
We live in a society where we live in a capitalist society. We value money above anything. And we make so much money off of poverty. Like, that's just the truth. You know, we capitalize on poverty so much.
wow.
And so it's hard. And also, like, when the capitalist system is making so much money off of poverty, we have to dehumanize them. Because if we humanize them and we realize that they're actually people, then we have to do something about it. Then we have to fight and help and support and actually create systems that support the kids, that support families struggling, you know? So it's easy to dehumanize and to label and to see them other than, you know? And it's also easy because we're all so busy. We all get up and go to work, and we work really hard, and we're tired, and our feet hurt, and, you know, life is hard. And then we equate our hardship to, like, what they're going through, and it's so not that. You know? It is not. We have running water. We have electricity. Our houses are very comfortable. You know, we got full-blown internet. You have multiple TVs going in one household. There's food. You have hot water. There are we have everything we need to thrive, to be able to work as hard as we work, right? And, like, some of my students, like, they're walking at least half a mile to a bus stop, and they're getting on at least 2 different buses to get to the school. Some of them are use 3 or 4 transfers to get to the school. And it is a different struggle. And so, yes, I recognize that we work hard, but also we're not working harder than the kids because we're getting paid. You know, we have nice, comfortable salaries that help us live nice, comfortable lives. And what are the kids getting? You know? So it is easier to dehumanize them, to label them, oh, well, they're just, you know, they're in the criminal system. But if you really look at the criminal system, we make the most money there, you know, on children. So it's like not an investment.
Right.
You know? And so it's easier to dehumanize them. It's easier because then you don't have to see that they're people just like us, that they struggle.
It removes the impetus to do something about it. It's like, well, it's their fault.
Yeah.
They're there because they chose to be there, so I don't need to do anything about it.
And if they didn't choose to be there, it was their parents. If it wasn't their parents, it's the drugs and, you know. Right. Like working with you, I remember when we met, the first time I came to you for something very specific. And I was in bed, and I heard, like, my heater kick on. And I was able to pinpoint that one of my trauma responses to my heater was to get up, check every window in my house, check the doors, and then walk upstairs and go to bed. And so the next time my heater, I mean, literally it took me forever to realize that. But I think what really messed with me was the heater kicked on, and I was like, I'm not going to get up. I am safe. I am absolutely safe, and everything's going to be okay. And my son came into the room, and he's like, Mom, you're not doing the thing. And I'm like, huh? Say more. He's like, yes, this is the part. This is what he said. He's like, this is a part where you go and you check all the windows and all the doors, and then you come back upstairs and we go to sleep. And I did not, that's when I realized, like, my trauma is actually affecting my children. Mm-hmm. And that's when I came to you, because when I became a mom, I wanted my kids to love being themselves. I wanted them to love life, and I wanted them to trust. I wanted them to feel joy. And for me, I thought I was doing all that by, like, not really showing them what I was feeling, and like having everything ready for them, and thinking like, oh, if I just do the thing where I am not panicking. And honestly, like, growing up, I just got really good at, and even still, at having full-blown panic attacks and having the ability to function. Mm-hmm. And I did not think that my trauma or my, like, issues that I was dealing with was affecting my children until then. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when I was like, I need therapy, because what I'm doing is not helping. I'm basically, like, putting these feelings in, and they're coming out, they're leaking out in different places. Mm-hmm. And it was really scary to come work with you at first, I think I was recommended by one of my friends, Ashley, who like loved working with you. And she's like, she's a Latina. Like, I know the reason you don't go to therapy is because you haven't found someone. And it was hard. It was hard to, I think I was in this position where I felt like I was a victim in my life. Like I felt like I didn't have the ability to navigate. And then, that the like, what is that structure of like the victim? And when you live from a victim perspective, you only have like the savior and the perpetrator, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know this. This is actually just coming to me because it came up in class, in one of my classes, and it pissed me off. And I didn't understand where it came from. But hear me out. Mm-hmm. Through our work, I was able to not only understand myself and be kind to myself, and learn to appreciate things that I was doing for myself, that I realized, like, what I learned from you and what I got from you is empowerment. And now it's connecting. I was so mad at my professor. Oh my God, I was so angry when he's like, well, when somebody lives in the victim perspective, they have to take responsibility for something, and that's how you get them to get out of this victimhood. And that's bullshit. It is not true. It is when people feel empowered. Mm-hmm. It is when people feel like, I could do something about this.
Right.
I also have the autonomy and the power within me to make other choices. Mm-hmm. I did not have this conversation with my professor, by the way, because I felt like I had already given him enough shit that day on the curriculum. So I am saving this for next semester. But I think just like doing therapy with you awakened so much power in me, and it kind of lit that fire that I think was still there, but it was very dim. You know, and it was very cautious. And by the time I came to you, I was living very, very, very careful. And also reckless, you know, because I learned to like numb my feelings with alcohol. It was just like, it worked. It made me fun. I was not weird. And I mean, I was so weird. But when I drank, I felt like I could be relatable. I could be happy. I could be careless. And I could fight. And it was super unhealthy, you know? And I think through like working together, I mean, there were times where I'm like, oh, why is this? Why did she say this to me? Like, why do I have to look in the mirror? I remember one of our sessions, you made me cry because you've asked me about somebody that I love the most and how would I feel if they were in my position, and I just cried and cried and cried and cried because I thought of my little boy. You know, and I'm like, oh man, if he was in this position, I would want to know, first of all, and I don't want him to live in agony by himself. And I would want him to trust that he's got people who love him and care for him. And so I started to find or try to find my tribe, or try I'm really close to my sisters and my mom. And even my little brother, we're close knit, and I did not really let them know how much I was struggling. You know, and so like through therapy, I was able to have some of those realizations and make those adjustments, and also like appreciate my voice. You know, and like lean into like, who says your intuition's wrong? Like, give into it. What is it telling you? You know, and so that was a powerful force, and I think it encouraged me to have those hard conversations and to really strengthen my relationships with people. You know,
It sounds like you know, the 13-year-old Espi, you had that fire, and then you tried to fit in, and you tried to be what everybody's definition of success was, and you tried to, you know, not make anybody uncomfortable, and you tried to color in the lines, and you tried to do this, and you got further and further and further away from your own light and your own fire, and it just dimmed and dimmed and dimmed and dimmed. And when you showed up at my office door, the fire was dimmed. Yet you were grappling with all of this trauma and all of this stuff. And it sounds like what happened in our experience, and I know we shifted. I mean, we started out in therapy, and I said, let's go in a different direction. I'm curious what your experience was with that. It's validating for me when I heard you say, you know, empowerment, because, you know, a lot of times I don't tell people that, but that's what I want. You know, you say you want this for your kids. That's what I wanted for you. I wanted you to be able to see what I saw and to connect with that. And it sounds like that happened, you know, with therapy. And then we shifted. We went off into coaching, you know, and I'm curious how coaching changed the game for you.
I think I loved coaching because I felt like therapy was a little restrictive, you know, like in terms of, there were times where I felt like, okay, therapy ended. but I felt like you had more to say and you couldn't. Like, I also felt like there was this, like, I don't know, guidelines, you know,
I had to stay in the lines.
Dancing. Yeah, like stay in the lines. And like, I really liked how coaching like opened up the world of wonder for us, you know, and like having more authentic conversations where I actually through coaching felt like I had a lot more access to you. You know, like I could ask your opinion, whereas in therapy, you couldn't really give me your opinion, or you couldn't give me your perspective, or you couldn't really, I had to come to that on my own. You know, I had to try to ask questions to break the guidelines and to, you know, there were more loops than, and coaching was so freeing. You know, I felt like I could just ask and process situations, like real life situations of the things that I wanted to do, you know, or even like some of these hard conversations that I needed to have. You know, I think of my conversation with Killcoin, and you and I talked about that, you know, and it was easy to like ask, like, what about this? Like, what would, you know, how does this sound? And, you know, it was great to have you there and to say like, okay, well, what do you want the outcome to be? What do you foresee? How do you want this to go? And like practice, which was awesome.
Yeah. Well, the process, it's definitely mutual for me, because I feel like with coaching, I can be a real person, you know, and I feel like you know, I do this because I care, you know, and the relationship is real. Yeah. But you're right. Therapy keeps you in a box. Yeah. And you don't have access to me. And I feel like with that, it limits your growth, right? It was like, it's like we blew the doors open, you know, when we decided to do the coaching together. And, you know, I watched you you just grew exponentially with coaching because we were having real conversations. You got all of me, you know, you got to get access to me, and I could share more, and I could be less encumbered by the rules, you know, that I have as a therapist. And so, you know, I felt like it served the relationship really well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think through therapy, I really felt like you saw who I was, you know, like as a person. And then when we moved to coaching, I felt like it humanized you to me, you know, like you became a person and a model of a person that I could be, you know, where with therapy, that shield, you know, was like, I will never, it's like a glass ceiling that I'll never be able to tap into, you know, because I don't think it was until coaching that we realized like we have so much in common.
Right.
You know, like our stories are similar. The way that we navigate the world was similar. And that's when I was like, oh my God, we have so much in common.
Isn't there so much power in that too? I mean, there's so much power. And when I say power, you just feel, you feel like it almost like increases your strength and your power and what you believe in yourself when somebody is right there with you and you know that they get it because they're there with you, like they've had similar experiences, you know, they share the struggles as much as the wins. They share the struggles, and it's like there's something about, I mean, I believe this very strongly. I think there's so much power in common experience that it just like unites you, and it's like the force together. It just amplifies. And that's what I felt like with us. I mean, our relationship deepened. Obviously, our relationship deepened. And I don't throw the words around that you're one of my favorite people. That's not something I tell everybody. I promise. It just amplifies that experience. And it's like it catapulted you. And not only did it catapult you, you know, I think something. Of course, you know, in the therapy world, you would never say this. In the coaching world, I can say this because I'm a real person. Is I grow too. I heal too, right along with you. The conversations that you and I have, like I said, Espi, you paved the way and the road was for you too. I mean that for me as well. Is I may help you, I may lead you, I may hold what I see you as being that you don't know you're there yet, but in the process I'm with you, and it's like this mutually beneficial, kind of relationship. And that's what I think is what's beautiful about people coming together. Like you think about your students, they need you. They need somebody to see them differently and to show them possibility, right? And you need that for yourself too.
Yeah.
And it seems like now at 38, you're coming into that. You're like, oh, I'm awake. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing that this is for me too. Same with me as a coach. I see this for me too. And it's really, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Magical.
Yeah. I think the freedom that coaching gave us, I mean, it launched me to actually apply for school. You know what I mean? And to apply to multiple schools and just be like, I can continue my education. I can keep doing and growing, and I can occupy spaces. And if I'm going to occupy spaces, I'm going to need to be ready to occupy these spaces. And it's also like, I tell my students all the time, like, I let them know, like, I'm still in school. I'm still doing the thing. Like, I am here with you. And it is a different level of empowering, right? Like, you can feel empowered, and then you got to pave that road. Then you got to do the work, and you feel a lot more capable of doing the work because I feel like I have access to you. You know what I mean? Like, even I was on my way here, I was looking for your address because I got lost in your neighborhood. I love that you have faith in me to get to your house without your address. So I was going through our messages, and I sent you my Harvard rejection. I told you how sad I was about that, and then I applied for other schools, and I'm like, oh my God, the freedom that coaching gives you, like, to help and to be there to pave that road and to just be like, listen, we're gonna put this brick down and we're gonna hammer it in there, and it may work and it may not work, and then the road goes on. You pave you grab another block, and just like having you there to pave that road has been like, it's like empowerment in action to me, because you can have all this empowerment and still feel trapped. And I feel like that's what I'm breaking at 38. Yeah. It's like the feeling that I've had of like the power that I can't like let out, and it's been through like our working together, through like our coaching and our therapy.
Power with is what came up with me for me. Power with. That's how our relationship changed. It was power with each other, and I think that's why it just amplified the experience. I'm right there with you, right? I'm right there with you.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Yeah. So I know we need to bring this to a close. I'm going to ask an interesting question. So here you are, your 38-year-old self. And just in the time I've known you, I mean, you've grown so much. And there's so much wisdom. There's so much that you know today. What would you tell your 13-year-old self? The one that was at Cole Middle School?
I wish I would have started therapy early.
Okay.
And I wish that I would have asked more questions. But it was part of playing small. I couldn't ask too many questions. I could just ask the essentials. And also, like, when you're like the family representative, you can't ask too many questions because then you come across as like you don't know. But so you gotta know. You gotta do it without asking. And But I wish that I would have asked more questions. And I would have asked for help.
Okay.
Which were two things that, like, my 13-year-old self was very aware of. You know, that's why I carried a diaper bag for so long.
Well, and extend that to your students. Like, think about the girl in the bathroom that was crying, and clearly these girls were being very mean. What did you want her to know? What do you want her to know?
That she's loved. Like, she is loved and she is appreciated for who she is. And that she is enough. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You carry so much value with you, and we don't actually know until... I mean, I'm 38. So some of us at 38, you know, and I don't want that for them. I don't want that road for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really simple, isn't it? It's simple, but it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
That if we could have gotten that message.
Yeah.
That we're not just the way we are.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't have to play small.
No.
Right. Yeah.
And to trust ourselves. I think, you know, we box ourselves so much.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's interesting because we do it to ourselves. I mean, I think our worlds, our tribe, our families, the society, our communities, they put us in small boxes. And we sometimes fight it when we're young. We rebel, we do that. And then we realize down the road, oh, wait a minute, I put myself in that box. I keep myself in that box. And it's too small. I can't move. And, you know, when we recognize that we have we're the only ones that hold that power to get out of the box and take up space and take up all of the room for what we're intended to and, you know, what we're meant for.
Yeah.
You know,
it's the fear.
Yeah.
It's the fear that paralyzes us, you know? It's that fear of, like, what are people going to say? What are they going to do? Who am I going to disappoint? You know, it is that fear. And, like, fear has a way of creeping and paralyzing people to keep you in that box, you know, to keep you in there and to play small. And it takes a lot to finally, like, it takes a lot to realize that it is that fear and that you can go beyond and above and over it and under it and next to it and turn around, you know, and face that, or right through it, like face that fear and trust that you have what you need, you know. It's something you say a lot. Yeah. Like, trust that you have what you need to do what you need to do, which I love. I say that to my kids all the time. Yeah. Like, trust that it is in you.
Yes. It's all in there. We have everything we need every moment, right? Thank you, Espi.
Thanks.
Thanks
for having me. Yeah, me too.
Absolutely loved it.
Latina.